What's going on, guys? This is SANDCAST, beach volleyball with Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, presented by Marriott Vacation Club Rentals and brought to you by volleyballmag.com. We have our second coach in a row here this week. Last week we had LSU coach Russell Brock. Now we got Stanford coach Andrew Fuller. It's going to be a fun one. And before we get to the podcast, just wanted to kind of take a second and express gratitude from both Tri and I, just with the support that we've had from the beach volleyball community, especially with the SANDCAST wildcard. If you haven't read up on that announcement, you can check on volleyballmag.com. But we've had a tremendous amount of support from you guys just since the podcast began about almost 5 months ago. It's kind of crazy how fast that has gone by, but the support and the feedback that we've gotten has been awesome. And, you know, we're just here to kind of spread the word of beach volleyball. And I know that the term and the phrase grow the game is overused, but that is what we're trying to do here on SANDCAST. And you guys as listeners and the beach volleyball community with your feedback and sometimes with generous donations to help us do the projects that we're looking to do. We just wanted to kind of express a message of a massive thank you to all you guys and stay tuned for more exciting developments to come. And for now, just enjoy our episode with Stanford coach Andrew Fuller. Take us through how Stanford's doing so far this year. This is your third year as head coach of Stanford Beach Volleyball?
So this is my second season.
Second.
And, the further I go along in coaching and the more I interact with coaches who've been doing this for a really long time, especially at Stanford, the more I am finding that, like, you're just never going to reach a point where you know everything. And that's really cool. And it's something that's really celebrated in the community up here. Just that spirit of always feeling like a beginner and a novice. And, that's not to say we don't, have a vision of where we want to go, but it's cool to, when you are on that path, just to peek around corners and see stuff that was unexpected and, just peeling back the layers of the onion and seeing the game in totally fresh new ways. And I think that, we're super fortunate to have, Lauren and Carissa who see the game in such unique ways. And then also some of our student athletes, the things that they pick up on and notice in the sport, are continually informing the way that I approach the game. So it's super fun.
Yeah, now that you're in your second year, what are some of those things that you have learned and picked up, just if you could kind of dig into some of those specifics? I'm sure that the learning curve is probably pretty steep going from having a sort of an indoor background to coaching beach.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some specific pieces of, kind of that learning process with our team. The less talking I do, the better, the more that I can ask them questions and help them, kind of do it on their own. That's a big one. It's cool to see. Oh, sorry.
It helps probably to have Lauren around. She's playing at a completely different level and probably giving you two different perspectives at the same time, having a coach like that.
Yeah, and I think that, as you guys can attest, like, playing beach volleyball is very hard, and getting better at it is even harder. And I think as coaches, we tend to get a little bit of separation from that in an unhealthy way. And so to have two current players on our staff, not including myself, they're constantly going through that, the day-to-day struggle of being an athlete. And so they can totally relate to, this is freaking hard. And for them to, Lauren's had a pretty good career as a beach player. And when she tells the players that it's never gotten easier, it's only gotten harder, and that she only feels good, like great physically, maybe 10% of the time, and that usually she's working through some dings or some kinks,
Yeah.
I think that resonates with players a lot more when it's coming from someone who has that sort of experience firsthand, and not like firsthand in the past, but firsthand in the present.
We all know Lauren takes good care of her body. She always gets the award for most time on the training table.
Yeah, she works at it.
That's a good lesson for the girls, though.
What's that?
Exactly. I've been taking notes.
Yeah.
And have you three adopted kind of different roles on the team, or just kind of felt out just what resonates with athletes the best? Because I'm sure that Lauren, her coaching, the athletes probably see her in a different perspective than they would you, and they probably see Carissa in a different perspective too, because Carissa has maybe, not that you guys are old, but Carissa kind of maybe can relate to them just socially a little bit more, being a little bit younger.
Yeah. I think, you're totally right, especially on the social end. And Carissa went to Stanford, and Stanford's a really unique institution. The experience there is very, I don't know, it's a different place. And so for her to have that experience, and then in terms of our roles with the team, I have kind of evolved into pulling back into more of a macro view of what's going on, more of a global perspective on the shape of the program and the needs and what the vision needs to be. And then I tend to kind of push Carissa and Lauren into more of the micro things that are integral, like they're really important, but that I realize if I get too focused on the micro, it kind of disrupts my vision and view on things that are on just a bigger scale, longer term maybe, and things that are not just there in front of me. So it's going from assistant coach to head coach is a huge shift, and it's a super fun challenge though.
And you mentioned that.
Notice.
Go ahead, Try.
I've noticed one of the big things with head coaches, like throughout my career, indoors the only time when I really had a head coach, but I've noticed that one of the biggest roles is just making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right assistant coaches, and surrounding the team with the right tools that they need. And it's a lot different approach than like an assistant who can just focus on teaching the girls the technique, strategy, and that kind of stuff. Whereas you have to make sure that they get literally everything from clothes to travel to playing to winning to everything.
Yeah,
together. So my hat to you there.
It's super fun, and we've been lucky to have a really amazing staff, not only on like the skills coaching with Carissa and Lauren, but our strength staff is rad and pushing it, and something that's been, I think, important to come to the realization of is that when we're inserting different perspectives and voices into their world, because you never know what's going to stick, and whether that's us saying things differently, or we have a pretty serious mindfulness practice in our program with meditation and breathing and visualization and peer acknowledgement, and we've tried not to just have the same person doing it, because I think with a lot of different things in performance, not everyone is going to respond the same way or like the same thing. And so trying different approaches that are still within the same vein. So we have like one guy who comes once a week. He's a professor in he does research on the physiological effects of forgiveness at Stanford in the med school. So he'll come by and he'll do forgiveness and gratitude practices with the team. And then we'll have our sports psych come in, and she does sessions with the team that are very different, but in the same world. And then we have, a yoga instructor who's teaching mindfulness on a very different level, but, kind of like taking these big boulders of what we want our culture to be and just attacking it from different angles.
That's really cool.
You guys have.
I feel like.
Go ahead, try.
I was going to say, I feel like those are the kind of things, all those things that he's talking about right now that you're giving to your girls, giving them the resources to, are all the things that I'm trying to gain for myself and learn at the professional level. And I didn't really get a chance to learn all that stuff at the collegiate level. So it's really cool that you're giving your girls the opportunity to learn it now. And I think it's going to help them for sure as athletes, but way beyond that for the girls that don't end up going professional afterwards.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, Try, you're welcome anytime.
I'll take you up on that.
We'll get you up on
go.
the farm.
We're going to pause there for a quick commercial break from our wonderful sponsors. You're listening to SANDCAST, Beach Volleyball with Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, presented by Marriott Vacation Club Rentals and brought to you by VolleyballMag.com. VolleyballMag.com is, of course, your daily digital news source for all things volleyball, from NCAA women and men to beach volleyball on all levels to international and more. VolleyballMag.com, the only media outlet that covers our sport on all fronts every day. This podcast is also brought to you by Marriott Vacation Club Rentals, which offers the best vacation accommodations in the world's best vacation destinations. Wherever you travel, to Florida, if you wanted to go visit the FIVB Major, to Hawaii, if you want to go see my boy Try at the Outrigger Canoe Club, to Europe, to California for any of the AVP and FIVB events out here on the Best Coast. Choose to rest in our luxurious guest rooms, suites, or villas for your next getaway. Villas offer all of the comforts of home, including a full kitchen, living and dining area, and separate bedrooms. Stay with the Marriott name you know and trust. Book big spaces and great places today. Visit www.mvcrentals.com.
Hi everyone, Amanda Dowdy here. I'm a professional beach volleyball player and I absolutely love the benefits of Firefly Recovery. I use the Firefly straps to help boost my recovery while I travel, after training or practice, and in between matches at a tournament. It is simple to use and its small size makes it perfect for travel. Firefly Recovery has become a staple in my training regimen, and honestly, it should be in every athlete's gym bag. Check out Firefly Recovery for yourself and change your game.
No, go on. Sorry, Travis, you were going to say something.
Travis,
I was going to say something similar to what Try said, in that you guys have an abundance of resources, it seems like, and not just resources in facilities, which I've heard that the Stanford facilities are beautiful, but you have a yoga coach, a sports psych, a forgiveness coach in a way. You know, how when you look back upon like your beach career, even at Lawrence, you know, these college girls they have way more. I mean, this is top of the line resources right here. How much of an advantage is that for these college girls to have it at such a young age to develop, you know, some of these skill sets like meditation, which if I were when I was in college, if someone told me to meditate, I wouldn't have had an open mind at all, right? But they're getting these practices that have been scientifically proven to be vital to athletic success. I mean, how much of it, how useful is it for you guys to have all this stuff?
I mean, it's super useful, but if we have to frame it in the right way. Like, what you guys have is exceptional, and to let them know that people at the national team level don't have this level of support. I mean, just what they're able to do with all of these different resources. Like, I know that when you're playing professionally, you're getting to dedicate almost all your time to performance, and our student athletes, like any student athlete at any school, they're doing so much academically that, you know, they're doing 20 hours max. That's what their countable limit is. So it's not like they're doing it for 8 hours a day. Whereas when Lauren is lifting with the national team, you know, she might have like a 3 to 4 hour lift and then 2 hours of practice. Whereas like you can only do 4 hours max of athletically related activity in the college world on any given day. But, you know, I think that one of the things that really excites me about being at Stanford is not only the abundance of resources, but the level of access to the resources. And I would be remiss if I was not taking advantage of people who aren't just easily accessible, but who are super stoked on what's happening in athletics and want to help out. Like I reached out to this professor of improvisational acting, and like what a great, and I'm hoping that she can come do a session with the team, and what a great, parallel in the performing arts with sports. I mean, sports are basically improv. As much as coaches want it to be this kind of like nice and tidy, neatly packaged thing, what the athletes are doing out there is completely improvisational. It's wild, it's messy. And, if we can find different ways of approaching our sport with resources that we have at hand, then I think it just maximizes the student athlete experience.
And speaking of kind of improv, I know that, I'm just going to kind of take a sidetrack for a second. You have your MFA, right?
Oh man, you did some digging. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, have you ever put that to use? Have you found that creative skill set? Have you found that you've been able to apply that in any way to your coaching? Because I know that with coaching, I mean, you have to look at things from all angles and just figuring out different ways to tackle issues, which is exactly what photography is in a way. And then you mentioned calling in an improv coach or improv professor.
Yeah. So I did a master's in photography before I really got into coaching, and that was an amazing experience. And actually, like my final thesis project was on the. When I say it's about beach volleyball, people are going to think of like pictures of people diving in the sand, which was not what it was at all. It was much more of the time off the court. And I know for me as an athlete, when I was on the court, I felt free and easy and loose. And it was the time off the court that I struggled to manage, whether it was like from an emotional standpoint or just, psychological standpoint. When you're just lying awake at night thinking about like the partner conundrum you have, or how badly you played at practice, or even kind of like the highs that you have when you have a great tournament and you just career and you're feeling great. And so I think it was really valuable to approach that from a creative standpoint and kind of get things out on paper, literally. And I don't know, I don't think there's one way. Like, I don't think that creativity is the end all way to approach coaching, but I think it's my way of approaching it. And there are people who are certainly more analytical than I am and who enjoy statistics more than I do, but I think that that's the way that I enjoy going about it. And I don't know, I'm just trying to be true to me.
And you've mentioned a couple times that Stanford is such a unique atmosphere. And I know that, I mean, academically, it's number one in the country, hardest school to get into. And you've now been you were an assistant at USC and then did a year or two at Long Beach before Stanford. So how is Stanford different, or I guess kind of compare and contrast, without really like bashing any programs, but how does each program differ just culturally from Stanford? Because I'm sure that each program kind of has their own unique culture about it.
Yeah. No, and I have so much love for Long Beach State and USC. The folks who I was at those institutions with gave me just so many opportunities and a lot of autonomy. In terms of like institutional differences, it's just apples and oranges, and certainly the admissions rigor of Stanford is a thing that informs a lot of things about the school. And I think that the admissions rigor also makes for some longer tenured people, because when you're coaching there from a recruiting standpoint, it's a difficult place to get to know because of the admission standards. And so I think you'll see that people tend to stay around there. Knock on wood, I would love to be there for my whole career. But Yeah, that's a unique thing. In terms of, not to compare Stanford to anywhere else, I think that there's a particular irreverence to Stanford that I really enjoy. I don't know if you've seen the Stanford band. I think they're kind of a funny embodiment of that sort of irreverence. And then there's kind of this bootstrapping entrepreneurial spirit that you have there that kind of permeates throughout the whole school. I know that I grew up 7 miles away from campus. So this is kind of the school that I knew about growing up, even though I had no chance of getting here out of high school. And I know that growing up next to Stanford totally messes you up in terms of, I thought that the Stanford band was like a normal college band. And they're most certainly anything but. I don't know. What other questions do you have? I kind of rambled there.
I mean, we're all in for rambling and storytelling. With Stanford's just academic rigor and standards of admission, how difficult is it to sometimes recruit? Because it's not like, if a player has a 3.0 GPA, I mean, that's going to be difficult. Very difficult to get into Stanford, which just for our listeners, for their knowledge, it's a 4.7% acceptance rate into Stanford, or at least as of last year. I don't know what it was this year. So it's insane.
Went a little lower.
Yeah, and it dropped. So I mean, more than 95% of applicants get declined. So have you had how do you go about recruiting? I mean, you not only have to have a top of the line athlete, because Stanford is a top of the line athletic school, but you need some of the brightest minds in the country too.
Yeah. It's very self-selecting, and that makes some conversations very brief. And, we can talk to a young student athlete who athletically is wonderful, is perhaps a really good culture fit for us. And we see a transcript and the conversation just ends right there. And then another way that conversations can either continue or not continue is that we will ask more of our student athletes in terms of the rigor of their curriculum, of their testing scores, and the admissions process than any other school. And so Stanford's a choice, and some people don't want to go through the work that is required to get there. It's my belief that for the right people, Stanford is worth the work. And is it going to be easy? Not at all. It's going to be really difficult. And people who are up for that challenge go through it and thrive at Stanford. But the nice thing is that if someone isn't up for the challenge, then they won't make it. And it's not a place that they should have been in the first place.
Is it?
So,
go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, is it a battle sometimes? Because, I mean, obviously to get into such a difficult school, they're going to expect you to be doing plenty of academics while you're there. Is it difficult for you as a coach with that balance between a very demanding academic schedule and program and athletically what is also a very demanding athletic schedule and program?
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to be really good at a lot of different things, it's going to be hard. So, we certainly want our student athletes to put academics first. And, there are times when we need to reschedule things around to make that happen. But something that I really like to hang my hat on as a coach, especially at Stanford, is that whatever our student athletes want to do academically, they can do. Is it going to be easy to graduate in chemical engineering? No. That's one of the gnarliest majors at Stanford. But our graduating senior last year graduated with a degree in chemical engineering while being a starter on the indoor volleyball team, winning a national championship, and then starting for us and crushing it. And, one of the funny things that the soccer coach at Stanford says, and he's just won his third national championship, is that if you look at the Hewlett and Packard buildings on Stanford's campus, there are other buildings named after people similar to Hewlett and Packard, but those are two pretty noteworthy guys. They probably missed some raging parties here and there. But if you want to be good at something, like, you need to commit to it, and you need to pour all of your energy into it. And I think that it's kind of a generational thing that people these days, and I would consider myself to be in that generation too. I don't think I'm that far off the mark age-wise from the people that we're coaching. They're kind of told from an early age that they can be good at everything. And I think that as you get into, higher altitudes of whatever it is that you're doing, the air is thinner and it's harder, and you gotta be pretty committed to it.
And who are some players that we should be keeping an eye on this year? I know that a name that most people following volleyball have heard is Catherine Plummer. But yeah, I guess just kind of walk us through your team, who we should be keeping an eye on, just because there's not an abundance of information on college beach volleyball. So for our listeners, who should we be keeping an eye on?
KP is obviously a pretty fascinating player, and just a super fascinating mind to be around, like the way that she dissects the game and the things that she sees. Pretty remarkable for a young person her age. And KP is also doing some stuff from just kind of like a technical standpoint that we haven't really seen in players her size, like, ever. If any listeners get to watch her, KP is hand setting every ball that she can. Like, if she can get her hands on it, she will. And I'm trying to remember, like, the last player her size who has ever hand set, and I would love it if someone could name someone who is 6'6" and saucing.
The closest I could think is Summer Ross.
Yeah, and like Summer's like 6'2".
Yeah, so KP's got 4 inches on her and still setting nectar.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like, I think that KP, the way that she plays, has the ability to inspire a young generation of players, honestly. I think people will look at her and she's just kind of like breaking the history of what it means to be a tall player and how to play. She's just kind of like shattering that over her knee. And I'm not trying to say that KP is playing at like the highest level in the world right now, but the approach she's taking and the chances that she's taking and the risk to really evolve her game, those are the things that I'm really most stoked about. Like, it's not where she is right now, it's the way that she's approaching the future of her game and where she wants to be 10 years from now.
It's got to make it a little easier on the girls to challenge themselves when they have someone like Lauren and Carissa there coaching. But do Lauren and Carissa ever get out there kind of?
Yeah, they play all the time. Yeah, they play all the time. And Carissa really is funny because if anyone's seen Carissa Cook play, she does a lot of she grew up playing beach with a bunch of old people in Santa Cruz, and so she plays like this old fart, but like in a very athletic way. So just over on ones and like these funny weird on twos, and she just kind of opens our players' minds to different ways of going about it. And then Lauren is bringing kind of this level of power that you see at the world tour level that you don't see quite as much in the college. And then, Lauren is kind of a shifty blocker, and she takes this big load and it's like very hide and pop out of the box kind of blocking, like very similar to you try in some of like the hand dragging and out of body hand positioning. And some of the players are like, holy shit, like, you're allowed to do that? Like, you can just reach your hand there? Like, I don't have to just reach up and down? And yeah, so
and Lauren and Krista, they actually played in a tournament together, right? Recently.
Yeah, they played in The Hague, the tournament that was in January near Amsterdam, and that was the super cool experience. That was Carissa's first FIVB, and we traveled as a whole staff, and obviously traveling to the Netherlands is a super fun experience in itself.
Yeah, that's so unique.
Yeah. And try something that we've been talking about a lot in our program is kind of going off of conversations I've had with you about baby court at Outrigger, and
yeah,
I loved hearing you talk about, you know, what you learned as a player, kind of the angles of the game and the physics of it, just from a young age. And that's something we're going to try and apply to youth clinics that we're doing at Stanford, where we get that net down a little bit, shorten up the court.
I don't want to tell everyone my secrets, but no, I actually still do that. I'll go over to the girls' net and do blocking over there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mostly so I can get that handwork where I'm really able to penetrate like I would be on a max jump, but not having to tax my legs. And that's kind of what it was like up on that baby court back in Hawaii that Andrew's talking about.
Yeah.
Is I was a kid, but blocking up above the net with my nose up at the top of the net. So I've been doing these movements with my hands for years. And I actually went down in Hermosa the other day, and I was walking by. I haven't started training yet, but I was walking by the paddle tennis courts, and I walked up while they were playing and like it. And that thing is perfect height for me to do hand blocking moves without even jumping. It's pretty awesome. It's gonna be my new thing.
I mean, man, when you told me about that, that was such a gift of not just like an idea of what baby core means, but like your firsthand experience of it. And I think that's such an incredible message for coaches everywhere to let's get these little kids off of the big net that's too high for them, and let them experience the game at a clip and with angles that are going to be what the future of their sport is like. The nature of that was like one of the best conversations I've ever had. That was super cool.
Well, let's have more of those. I was actually listening to some of the basketball commentators talk the other day, and they were talking about youth basketball and how they don't want their kids to have to go and play on 10-foot rims when they're really young, you know, or even 8-foot. Like they want them to bring it all the way down so they don't get stuck. Like they were using Steph Curry as an example, which, I mean, obviously he figured it out, but he had to completely change his shooting style because he had to shoot from the hip because he wasn't strong enough to get it all the way up to the 10-foot basket. So it threw off his technique. Eventually now he's the best shooter in the world, but they want kids to be able to use that regular technique from a young age. And right now it's like on a high net, kids are like doing full arm swings just to get it over the net.
Right. It looks like they're shot putting.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just getting like the most insane lumbar extension, back bend.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, trying to fling like all of their 80 pounds into getting the ball over the net. That's too high, and the ball is too heavy, and the court's too big.
And blocking doesn't exist.
Right. And they've never hit against a block before.
Yeah. We're on to something. We'll start the baby court league for kids. Dude. AAU or baby court league. That'd be great.
I might try and play in those too. I don't like jumping too much anymore.
Yeah. We'll do an adult league for you and this is friends.
How tall are you, Andrew? You're about what, 6'8", 6'9"?
6'9", yeah. 6'9" with no hops and like just zero gas on the ball.
No, you played in actually I think we played each other a few times, right? When you were playing when I first came out?
Yeah, you were playing with Carlson and then with Monty, I think. And, and
twice. I remember you beat
Monty were just all over my case, and I think you guys just put the nail in the coffin.
Good old Will Montgomery.
I can't get by this kid. I gotta hang it up.
Start coaching.
God, I'm gonna get out of the game.
Well, how was your experience playing in Pan American Games? Because I was actually there it was Guadalajara, but I was there playing on the national team indoors, and I know that was a huge deal. I mean, that's a full-on Pan American Games is the North American Games, and like full opening ceremonies. It basically feels like the Olympics. But how was that experience on the beach? And you guys did well to taking a 5th.
Yeah, it was super cool. I was really green. I hadn't really competed internationally. And man, so Mark Van Zwieten and I played together, and we decided that, first of all, I'm left-handed, so the amount of time I've spent playing on the left side of the court is just a fraction of the time I've been on the right side of the court. And as a team and as a coaching staff, we kind of felt like Mark was siding out a little bit better from the right. So it was this really great learning experience of, okay, holy crap, I've got like 2 months to figure out how to play on the left, 2 months how to figure out how to set from the left, which I think is even harder than like trying to figure out the siding out piece. And then I bump set when I was practicing, maybe like 25% of a practice I would bump set and 75 I'd go hands. And I'm just like way more confident with my hands. And like the first match of this tournament, we're down in Puerto Vallarta, and it is like 95 degrees, 95% humidity. I'm just like roasting so hard. And if anyone's seen me, I'm very fair skinned. And when I get in the sun, like I just turn beet red. And they call my first hand set. I'm like,
oh no,
it seemed a little tight, but I'll go for it again. They call my second hand set, and I end up just bump setting the rest of the tournament.
Oh no.
It was just like, it was very improvisational, and we did okay. We didn't have the most amazing tournament, but that was also my first experience having like a dedicated beach coach working with me, and it was Jeff Conover, who is just the coolest coach to work with. And for those of you who don't know, Jeff is now the tournament director for the AVP, and Jeff was just the best vibes, and he totally understood me, and it was great. And then we had Brady Compton doing video work, and this is my first experience like seeing data volley and having someone code our matches and scout. And for me, like having never experienced that, when we had someone breaking stuff down on video and showing our opponent's tendencies, it was like playing a video game. I was like, oh my God, Mark, it's working. The things us are actually coming to fruition. Like, oh, when this guy's wide, he swings angle sharp, so just block that. And it was a super cool experience, and one certainly that I'm very thankful for.
Now 7 years later, you get to just nerd out on all that stuff.
Dude, it's so crazy.
It's your full-time job now.
Yeah, just geeking out on coded video.
And
I love it. As a
full-time kind of freelance writer, I do kind of a number of different things, and one of them is that I help high school kids with their college application essays.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of the kids in Orange County are exceptional academically, like kids who are applying to Stanford and expecting to get in. And I'm reading their writing, and I'm learning from them. I'm like, holy cow, like this is, like upper level writing from a 17, 18-year-old kid. I'm sure that you probably have a similar experience coaching some of these kids who are at the, they're the top, 1% of 1% of their high school classes. How much have you learned just from coaching these kids too?
Dude, so much. I've learned that if I don't have a damn good reason for doing something, they're going to find the holes in it and just blow me up. And that's the greatest gift. And then, so like whether that's like some game or drill that I come up with, and I have like some scoring structure, they'll like immediately pounce on the loophole of it, and I'll just have to be like, all right, you guys are right, we're never doing that again. Next thing.
You're really kept on your toes.
Dude, they just crush me all the time.
You have some of the smartest athletes in the country, and then your assistant coach and your wife is one of the best blockers in the U.S. And their assistant coach is a player on the domestic tour.
Oh my God. I mean, what's that old adage, like, surround yourself with people who are better than you? Like, at any given point, I am the dumbest person in the room, and like
but you're so smart for keeping them all around, and just keep them all happy and moving forward and doing what they do well, and that's basically
feed them good food, get them some cool gear, and we'll be all right.
Unleash the beast.
Yeah. And then the other thing, other than them like poking holes in everything I do, we do a lot of individual meetings, and our last round of individual meetings, we asked them to bring in either like a research paper or study. And I think this is something that like every coach can do. I don't think this is, unique to Stanford. But our team brought in just the most interesting studies, and we asked them to, find stuff that would relate somehow to their craft and getting better at beach volleyball, and the ownership that they took of finding just really cool research, about like self-organizing strategies in basketball at the end of games. Like that was a study that Plummer brought in. And then like the bonuses and the positives of placebo effect in the athletics arena. That was something that Courtney Bowen brought in. How like placebo is actually helpful in sports. It's kind of like the superstitious stuff. Like if you think that you play better with a certain knee brace on, like you probably play better with it on.
Right.
And then one of our freshmen, Kate Formico, she brought in this study from the University of Arizona about how thinking about your own mortality makes you perform better in sports. So like super cool stuff. So now we joke because Kate's this super sweet person, and we're like, hey, this is, we need something. Can you just remind us quickly that we're all going to die one day? And she just like says it super deadpan. Yeah, hey guys, just remember, we're not going to be here forever.
Whatever works.
Yeah, do whatever it takes.
It must be fun to coach a group like that too. That they just seem like they're just so eager to learn. Like they're bringing in studies from the University of Arizona, which, if anybody has ever read a study, these things are not page turners.
No, I usually skip to the abstract. I'm like, they're like digging into the hard numbers.
Right,
on it.
They're looking at like the methodology of these things.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
Give us some spark notes.
Yeah.
And with you, Andrew, I mean, at one point you were doing so many different things. You were helping out with USAV, you were coaching Lauren, and you were coaching Stanford. How difficult is it to balance all three of these different things, all three of which demand very different, perspectives from you?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the gnarliest thing was when I was an assistant coach at USC. I was coaching Lauren and Brooke Sweat, and we would practice from 7 to 9 in the morning. And man, thank God for them to do that, because they didn't have to go at 7 to 9. They did that to accommodate my schedule. And I mean, gosh, no pro athlete deserves to practice at 7 every morning, but they were such ballers about it. So I would coach them 7 to 9. I would grab burritos from Brothers Burritos in Hermosa, drive straight to SC, get up there at like 10 in the morning, and then coach there until like 5 or 6. And I don't think that that's exceptional in the coaching world. Like, I think there are a lot of people who grind it out way harder than that. But for me, like, that was just kind of an eye-opening thing of, man, you need to get your shit together from a mental perspective, or you are going to be fried by the end of this. And that really turned me on to meditation and a mindfulness practice and getting just a little bit of quiet time. I think that is good for me to have some experience with that, because we are living and coaching in a world where we are just so oversaturated with information and stimuli that to get some quiet time, I found out firsthand how important that is. I don't know if that answered your question, Travis, but
no, it did. And I'm wondering, so are you still coaching Lauren now, or are you guys kind of, would that be almost too much business in the relationship?
Yeah, no, I'm not coaching her anymore. I mean, we still talk every day about some facet of volleyball. So like, we're coaching each other all the time, and that's super fun. But I've really just poured my efforts into Stanford now, and just giving that everything that I have, really.
And I have read that you have a motto, maybe this was at USC, that you told your players that we need to make more mistakes, right? Meow.
Oh my God.
So anytime that Super Troopers can be worked into coaching advice, I'm in. I'm all in.
Right. And it feels like that the younger the players get, the less movie references mean anything. So now I'm just like becoming super irrelevant year by year. No, but I do think that talking about making mistakes and like creating a culture where mistakes are not just like encouraged but celebrated is pretty important for growth. And that isn't just about the coaches celebrating it, but like having your teammates celebrate when they can see that you're going for something, and making a mistake in the process is something that I think having teammate support is almost even more important, because I don't know, you start tuning coaches out. Like, I get that. I don't blame players for that, but I don't think you tend to tune out your teammates as quickly. So anyway, no, I'm glad someone remembered something I ever said.
What I'm wondering is, at Stanford, is that almost a hard message to get across? Because on the one hand, we all know that making mistakes is one of the fastest way to learn, or not just making mistakes, but understanding what went wrong and how to correct it in that mistake is an excellent way to learn. Yeah. But going to Stanford, these are kids who so very rarely fail at anything. So is that tough for them to accept, that failure is a part of the process when going, throughout high school? And most of these kids got perfect SAT scores. So failing is a pretty new concept.
Yeah. No, it's gnarly for them. And it's important for me to understand that that it's really emotional and heavy, and that this is probably the first time that they've faced some serious adversity, and probably their first failures, first setbacks, maybe the first B they've ever gotten in their lives. And all of a sudden you're in the same classroom as someone who is just way better at what you're doing than you are. And, the book Mindset by Carol Dweck is really, really important to our program. I know it's important to a lot of sports at Stanford, but just sports at any school or team or whatever. And we're lucky that the author of Mindset, Carol Dweck, is a professor at Stanford. And so I think if someone else, if that book had been written elsewhere and then we were trying to apply it, it wouldn't carry the same sort of gravitas that it does because it was written by a Stanford professor. Like, this is research that is done at your institution on the positive effects of having a growth mindset when you're facing failure, and putting that book and that philosophy kind of at the core of everything that we're doing. It doesn't make it like super smooth. I think making mistakes is always going to be this clunky, awkward process, but having a framework around it to navigate those waters. And I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. I need to read that book, actually. I've been hearing about it for years, but haven't gotten around to it.
I wish I had read it when I was like 14 years old. I think I could have done a little bit better in my young adulthood.
Next time I'm over, I'll bring it on over. I read that one. It's a fast read too. It's only like 140 pages. It's good stuff.
It's quick.
So I'll bring it by for you.
I'm really good at reading the first half of books.
Me too, try. I'm a starter. I don't finish books.
I should start with the second half.
The gist of it. If you read the first 50 pages, you'll get it.
Oh yeah.
I need to get better at sort of cutting books off, because sometimes even if I'm miserably reading this thing, I just feel so obligated to finish the book that I just grind my way through it.
Yeah.
I'll teach you. I tend to somehow justify every time, like, I think I got it. I got the point. Sweet. This other book over here looks pretty cool. And then I'm super into it, and then I justify, got it. I think I understand everything.
There was a really amazing podcast episode on Freakonomics that they were talking about the upside of quitting. It's such an incredible episode. They were talking about how if you're going to fail fast and fail hard. And then, like, just the quicker that you do that in life, the faster you get to the things that you love.
I'm going to have to listen.
That.
I've heard great things about that podcast. I'm going to have to start listening to that one.
It's so rad. Yeah, it's awesome.
We're going to pause there for a quick commercial break from our wonderful sponsors. You're listening to SANDCAST, Beach Volleyball with Bourne and Travis Mewhirter, presented by Marriott Vacation Club Rentals and brought to you by VolleyballMag.com. VolleyballMag.com is, of course, your daily digital news source for all things volleyball, from NCAA women and men to beach volleyball on all levels to international and more. VolleyballMag.com, the only media outlet that covers our sport on all fronts every day. This podcast is also brought to you by Marriott Vacation Club Rentals, which offers the best vacation accommodations in the world's best vacation destinations. Wherever you travel, to Florida, if you wanted to go visit the FIVB Major, to Hawaii, if you want to go see my boy Tri at the Outrigger Canoe Club, to Europe, to California for any of the AVP and FIVB events out here on the Best Coast. Choose to rest in our luxurious guest rooms, suites, or villas for your next getaway. Villas offer all of the comforts of home, including a full kitchen, living and dining area, and separate bedrooms. Stay with the Marriott name you know and trust. Book big spaces and great places today. Visit www.mbcrentals.com. And now,
love it.
We're going to move on to our final segment here, the fan questions. So we open it up. They're pretty nice to you here. And our first one, and this is a great question here, is from AJM. As a coach with the USA Beach team, what should USAV be doing to make our teams more competitive on the FIVB? I'm pretty interested in that one.
So I think that USA Volleyball is doing a good job going in this direction of encouraging young players to handset. I think that if we look at programs that have done a lot with very little, we should look at especially the Dutch program. Like, that is a small-ass country with not a lot of athletes who has done exceptionally well in both genders. And something that is encouraged from a very young age in the Netherlands is hand setting.
And being tall.
Being tall. They're good at being tall. They have some big kahunas out there for sure. But I love what the Dutchies do with hand setting. I think that's something that we can emulate. What else? I think that on the women's side, we're going to see so many amazing players coming out from the collegiate beach scene, who have had great training, great strength and conditioning, and have learned the nuances of the beach game from a much younger age. I think that's something that's been hard for the American women, is that they've all been playing indoor volleyball through college, maybe through a little bit of a professional career overseas. And it takes time to really learn, especially like with wind. Wind is such a feel thing that you can't just quantify and, have any sort of, system of this happens, you do this, this happens, you do this. And so to get that long-term experience of the environmental factors of beach volleyball, I think is huge. Trying to go back to AJ's question. I'm guessing this is AJ Mahalik. I think those are big. And yeah, I think, I'm going to stick with those two right now.
And one thing, just while we're on the topic of USAV and FIVB, you look at what Brazil is doing, and they're just roster from top to bottom. I mean, Brazil's like number 10 team, could probably be in the top 25 in the world if there were no country quotas. What is Brazil doing, do you think, that maybe the USA is not? Is it just kind of a cultural thing that they value beach volleyball more? Or how can the US keep up with Brazil when they got Alvaro and Simon, who won a major in Fort Lauderdale last season, aren't even getting out of their own country quotas?
Yeah, it's so gnarly. I mean, I think the popularity is huge. A lot of the best athletes in Brazil, if they are too tall for soccer, they're probably doing volley. So I think that's pretty key. Having that sort of love and like that home country fervor for your sport, and what seems to be a pretty thriving domestic tour where young players can get experience. They have a completely different economic system where they can hire 4 coaches at a practice and get a volume of repetitions and touches that you can't buy in America. Like, you can't pay some guy $20 a week to come and smash balls at you like you can in Brazil. Like, talking to people who have trained in Brazil, they're just like, oh my God, the number of reps I got was insane.
Yeah.
I think they have a nice education system for their coaches. I think that helps. And I think USA is refining its coaching education year by year, and that's helping. But I don't know. What do you guys think? God,
I know that USA Volleyball is making some big changes right now. Mm-hmm. They just brought in Tyler Hildebrand, as you know.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, and I've just kind of been lingering around USA Volleyball just because I've been bored. It seems like they're trying to take it in that direction where they have a coaching staff overseeing all the teams and being a little bit more objective in terms of who gets to be on the national team and who gets the support. And it's not just based on your points ranking. It's, hey, we think this person has a better potential to perform than you do, so you're going to get dropped out of the system, which is what Brazil does. Brazil will even kick out their old guys. If that were the case, then everyone would be kicked out in the U.S. because they're all old guys right now.
Yeah.
But do you think do you like the direction that they seem to be going in terms of being more objective, selecting players, being open to indoor players coming out, and basically like putting together teams and having coaches oversee practices rather than everyone being on their own? It's like a little bit more of a national team feel. You think that's going to help USA? Because a lot of the older players have always been like, that's going to take away our freedom to do what we think is best for us individually. And I get that too. You want to do exactly what's best you think you can perform best under. But for them, they want to see if they want to do whatever's best for the national team as a whole.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the right answer. I don't know how it's going to go. I see pluses and minuses to both. One big positive I see is kind of a consolidated training structure where you have like training groups and you have specific focuses. And I think that Tyler is really cool in understanding a lot of different styles of play and having some really, really cool ideas on how to kind of push the envelope with the gameplay. And I think training groups are something that the pro scene in America has kind of been missing because people just kind of like to operate on their own island. And, there's this sort of secretive way of operating when, you want to be playing against really good people in practice, but you don't want them knowing what you're working on. And you see all these like very hushed conversations, and it doesn't feel like a cooperative environment. It's but the flip side of that is that I think that when you have the American structure where people are, groveling to get into it and forking over their own money and investing in themselves before USA invests in them, it just it creates dogs who are willing to fight for stuff. And I think when you pit like an American who's just been fighting so hard for everything they've gotten in the sport and pit them against someone from another country who's just been like selected through and passed up the chain because they're the biggest kid, or I think in those tight moments, you see people who are dogs winning out more often.
I like that. I like that idea.
And so I don't know if there's a way where people, where the system can be creating dogs who just scratch and claw for everything they get, at the same time as having a little bit more of a selected culture. People and I hope this comes across in the most respectful way, but Nick Lucena, Nick played at Florida State on the club team, and I think in a lot of points in his career, if it was a USA selection structure, I don't think Nick would have been picked.
Right.
But that guy's a freaking animal and just one of the toughest, gnarliest people who is playing this sport in the world. And I think that he's a really prime example of someone who's just scratched and clawed for everything he's gotten. And I think when you see Nick playing in those big moments, dude, I have so much respect for him, just the way that he battles through injuries and pain and getting served 1,000% of the balls in every match. And I don't know if we would have gotten Nick with a different way. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see there being a one way is right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something inside me is saying that some kind of change is going to be good, and it might not be better, but it's going to be different, and it'll bring out new things in people, and I think it'll be good for the sport in general, even though part of me wants it to be the old way, because that's how I've been doing it, and I am comfortable in this system. But change just seems, in our sport as a whole, I think there's so much more potential out there. So it's good, even though it's scary.
Totally. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Very cool.
And we'll do two more fan questions. I know we've kept you here for a while, so I appreciate you spending so much time on a Monday night here with us.
I just started talking. I'm sorry.
I love it. I mean, these always end up going longer than we expect because the conversations are fun. I love talking about this stuff and just nerding out on volleyball.
Yeah.
So Wolfgang wants to know, if you could be any female volleyball coach, who would you be and why?
Wait, I'm so confused.
It's like if you wanted to trade places with, say, Anna at USC.
Oh, gotcha.
Or, I mean, we can just open this up, too. I mean, if you want to just, like, swap in with John Mayer at LMU, too. That's
Gosh, who I would love to swap spots with is Helka, who is one of the coaches for Laura Ludwig and Kira Walkenhorst.
Ooh,
that's a great answer.
They've got a freaking cool coaching staff. Helka, Jurgen, and this other guy. And it sounds like they kind of like have this rotation of coaches going. And, man, having like scouted against that team, they are so complex and they do so many different things that you have to be held accountable for when you're playing them, that they're doing some really cool stuff. So I think, and the fact that they speak German and I can never understand anything they're saying just adds to the history.
And I'm really interested. So when you scout a team like Ludwig and Walkenhorst, who for a while were the number one team in the world, what are you looking for? What did you guys find? Because obviously everyone's looking for tendencies, and the success rate against them wasn't super high. So what did you see when you were scouting them, and what kinds of stuff were you looking for?
Man, you're looking like for very small situational opportunities to score a point. And they're so gnarly defensively that like you have to side out well to stay in the game. Looking for transitional liabilities where like we don't have a great clean swing, go to this spot and live to see another day, knowing that their transition percentage is lower from that spot. And they're a team that, like, if you don't bring it from the service line, I mean, just most good teams, if you don't bring it from the service line, you're not going to be in a position to win. And I think that young players, when another team is in system and they just get smashed on, that can be really deflating. But when you're playing a great team and they are in system, knowing that you're going to have to take some serious chances to score a point. That was one of Jeff Conover's big things. As a coach, I loved it. I loved learning this from him, just that when teams are in system, you got to take chances to score points. When teams are out of system, that's when you can be a little bit more conservative.
And that's kind of what Reed Pretty's thing this offseason has been. He says the best defense for an undersized team is a good serve. Because if you have Phil Dahlhauser in system against a 6'2" and a 6'4" player, I guess good luck.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we'll have one more fan question here, and then we will let you off the rope. I don't even know how to pronounce this name. This is just from a user on Volley Talk. What is your best or worst, depending on one's perspective, Anna Collier story? So you worked, you coached with her for a couple years, right?
Oh boy, 3.5 years. We shared an office about as big as a custodian closet.
Oh my!
For 2 of those years. Best and worst story.
I got a story.
You have a story?
Well, a little one. When I first met her, she was doing tryouts for the youth national team when I was trying to make the World University Games. And first day of practice, she's I made some honest mistake. I think I just hit a ball out, something just normal. And she yelled at me. I didn't even know who she was really. She was yelling at me, "I will cut you," screaming at me and pointing me. And when she was saying that, I thought she was saying she was going to cut me like with a knife. That's how it came off, because she was yelling it at me. I was like, oh, who is this lady? Oh my God. She said she's threatening to cut me. And then I realized she was threatening to cut me from the team. But that's Anna. Sometimes things come off that way.
I don't know if it's not really like a singular story, but I think it's like a singular theme, and something that I'll always be very thankful for is like the amount of responsibility and autonomy that Anna gave me as a young coach. For me, like, she was very willing to let me just do things and make a shitload of mistakes. And I think that's like a pretty irreplaceable coaching experience. So I don't know. It's not like a really good anecdote, but definitely something that I'll be thankful for.
Awesome. And then kind of just one wrap-up question here for you that we're trying to sort of make uniform on SANDCAST to end up with is, if you could give advice to any young up-and-coming volleyball player, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh, man. Can I do 3?
Yeah, as many as you want.
Play different sports. I think that people are just specializing way too early. I think that number 2 would be stop doing sports for a certain amount of time during the year and just get a job. I think that the experience of having a boss as a young person and having someone straight up just tell you, no, you can't do that or I'll fire you is something that you can't really replicate in sports.
I still need a job.
Me too. I don't really consider this a job.
I'm holding out.
Dude, keep it up.
This is your job, Try. You're the boss.
Yeah. Dude,
no, that job experience probably would have come in handy this last year when I sat
out. Third thing, this is going to sound like a plug for Stanford, but read Mindset by Carol Dweck. I would have said that if I wasn't coaching at Stanford.
And probably about half the guests on the podcast have said the same. So it's definitely not almost everyone has stressed it. I mean, Dahlhauser talked about it. Billy and John, obviously. I mean, they're Carol Dweck disciples. You know them. It comes up a lot.
That's cool. It's a game changer.
Yeah, we appreciate you spending so much time to chat with us here, especially during the middle of a really busy season for you.
No doubt. Love talking to you guys. Thanks for letting me ramble on. Hope it didn't waste too much of your time or your listeners.
No, this is fun. And now where can we find either you or the Stanford volleyball team on social media? Where can we kind of follow along with you guys?
Yeah, so it's at Stanford Beach VB. That's across all platforms. And then I will retweet about one thing every 6 months, so I wouldn't even bother looking me up on Twitter. And I think Instagram is a cool service, but for me, by and large, a waste of time. Man, I don't know about social media. I'm kind of...
That's a whole nother podcast.
I don't know I'm not sure how much value we're getting out of that as a society.
I think as more and more people study it, we're seeing that it is degenerative. It's not adding a lot of value.
I think going outside and like getting some sunshine is probably a little more valuable.
Which is why we play beach volleyball.
Yeah, baby. Way to tie it in. There you go.
I do what I can. Well, again, Andrew, we appreciate you coming on. Good luck the rest of the season. Good luck to Stanford.
Hey, thanks to you guys. You guys are doing an awesome thing. Keep it up. And looking forward to seeing you in the sunshine at some point.
All right.